In a charming little town nestled between rolling hills and lush forests, there was a quaint bridge that connected two neighborhoods. This bridge, though small and unassuming, was a vital link for the residents. It had stood for decades, witnessing countless stories and adventures. However, one day an unwelcome development began to unfold. The problem, Karen. A local contractor had recently taken on a large construction project, and her cement trucks were wreaking havoc on the little bridge. Day after day, the trucks lumbered across, their heavy loads causing the bridge to creak and groan under the strain. The residents, particularly those living on the other side, grew increasingly concerned about the bridge's integrity. Community concerns. As the trucks continued to roll over the bridge, cracks began to appear in the wooden planks. Neighbors gathered to discuss the issue, their worries growing with each passing day. "If this keeps up, the bridge is going to collapse," one elderly resident exclaimed. The community decided it was time to take action. They organized a meeting to confront Karen and express their concerns. The confrontation. At the meeting, residents voiced their worries about the bridge's safety and the potential danger posed by the heavy trucks. Karen, however, was dismissive. She assured them that the bridge could handle the weight and that she needed the trucks for her project. Frustration simmered as the residents realized their concerns were falling on deaf ears. The decision, determined to protect their beloved bridge, a group of residents decided to take matters into their own hands. They devised a plan to set a trap that would not only stop the trucks but also send a clear message to Karen. They gathered materials and brainstormed ideas, hoping to create a solution that would be both clever and effective. The trap. The residents worked through the night, constructing a makeshift barrier on the bridge using old wooden pallets, ropes, and brightly colored signs that read, "Bridge closed, danger ahead." They hoped that the visual warning would be enough to deter the trucks, but they also planned to add a little surprise to ensure Karen got the message loud and clear. The big day. The next morning, the trap was set. The residents hid nearby, watching and waiting as the sun rose. They could hear the distant rumble of engines as Karen's cement trucks approached. Tension filled the air as they held their breath, hoping their plan would work. As the first truck rolled toward the bridge, the driver slammed on the brakes. The sight of the barrier and warning signs caught him off guard. He quickly radioed Karen, who arrived moments later, her expression a mix of confusion and annoyance. The reveal. As she stepped out of her truck, Karen approached the bridge, only to find the residents waiting for her. They explained the situation once more, pointing out the damage done to the bridge and emphasizing the dangers of her trucks crossing it. But Karen, stubborn and unwilling to listen, insisted that the trucks were necessary for her project. The unexpected twist. Just as Karen began to argue, the ground beneath her feet trembled. The residents watched in horror as a massive crack appeared in the bridge's surface, a result of the ongoing strain from the heavy trucks. The bridge groaned ominously, and suddenly, a section of the wood splintered and gave way, sending a shower of debris into the water below. The outcome. Karen stumbled back, realizing the gravity of the situation. Okay, I get it," she shouted, backing away from the bridge. The residents, relieved that their warning had been heeded, quickly moved to secure the area. They called local authorities to assess the damage and ensure no one else attempted to cross. A new beginning. In the aftermath, the community came together to repair the bridge. They organized fundraisers and sought support from local businesses, all eager to restore the bridge to its former glory. Karen, witnessing the determination and unity of the residents, decided to lend a hand. She offered to provide materials and workers to assist with the repairs, finally understanding the importance of the bridge to the community. Building bridges. As the project progressed, Karen's attitude shifted. She began to form relationships with the residents, attending community meetings and learning about their concerns. In time, she became a valued member of the neighborhood, advocating for safety and working alongside her neighbors. Conclusion. The little bridge, a symbol of connection and community, was rebuilt stronger than before. The experience taught everyone a valuable lesson about communication, collaboration, and the importance of listening to one another. From that day forward, the bridge stood not only as a passage over the water, but as a reminder of the power of unity and understanding in the face of challenges. And as for Karen, she embraced her role as a responsible contractor, always mindful of the impact her work had on the community she now proudly called home. In a charming little town, nestled between rolling hills and lush forests, there was a quaint bridge that connected two neighborhoods. This bridge, though small and unassuming, was a vital link for the residents. It had stood for decades, witnessing countless stories and adventures. However, one day, an unwelcome development began to unfold. The problem. Karen, a local contractor with grand ambitions, had recently taken on a large construction project just outside of town. Her aim was to build a state-of-the-art shopping complex, complete with a grocery store, coffee shops, and boutiques. The project promised to bring jobs and excitement to the area, but it came at a cost. Her cement trucks were wreaking havoc on the little bridge, which had not been designed to handle such heavy loads. Day after day, the trucks lumbered across, their heavy loads causing the bridge to creak and groan under the strain. The residents, particularly those living on the other side, grew increasingly concerned about the bridge's integrity. They watched in horror as cracks appeared in the wooden planks, and the once sturdy structure began to show signs of wear. Community concerns. As the trucks continued to roll over the bridge, the concerns of the community grew louder. Neighbors gathered to discuss the issue, their worries mounting with each passing day. Families who had lived in the area for generations shared stories of how the bridge had been a part of their lives. "If this keeps up, the bridge is going to collapse," one elderly resident exclaimed. The community decided it was time to take action. They organized a meeting to confront Karen and express their concerns. Flyers were posted around town, inviting residents to join the discussion. The meeting was held in the local community center, where the tension was palpable as neighbors voiced their fears about the safety of the bridge and the potential danger posed by the heavy trucks. The confrontation. At the meeting, the atmosphere was charged with frustration. Residents took turns speaking, their voices filled with a mix of anger and desperation. "You can't keep using this bridge, Karen," shouted one father of three, his face reddening with emotion. "What if one of our kids gets hurt?" Karen, however, was dismissive. She assured them that the bridge could handle the weight and that she needed the trucks for her project. "I have permits and inspections," she said, crossing her arms defiantly. "This bridge is perfectly safe, and the project will bring jobs and growth to our town." Frustration simmered as the residents realized their concerns were falling on deaf ears. They left the meeting feeling disheartened, knowing they needed a better approach to protect their beloved bridge. The decision. Determined to protect their neighborhood and their cherished bridge, a group of residents decided to take matters into their own hands. They gathered at a local diner one evening to brainstorm ideas. Over cups of coffee and plates of pie, they discussed their options. They knew they had to devise a plan that would not only stop the trucks, but also send a clear message to Karen. One resident, a retired engineer named Mr. Thompson, suggested that they set a trap to catch Karen's attention. "We need to show her the consequences of her actions," he said, his voice steady. The group nodded in agreement, and they began to sketch out a plan that would be both clever and effective. The trap. The residents worked through the night, gathering materials to construct a makeshift barrier on the bridge. They used old wooden pallets, ropes, and brightly colored signs that read, "Bridge closed, danger ahead." They hoped that the visual warning would be enough to deter the trucks, but they also planned to add a little surprise. To ensure Karen got the message loud and clear, they decided to create a small but effective obstacle that would not only block the trucks but also draw attention to their plight. They would fill a truck tire with water and set it in such a way that it would tip over when a truck attempted to cross, splashing water everywhere. It was a light-hearted yet impactful way to highlight the absurdity of the situation. The big day. The next morning, the trap was set. The residents hid nearby, watching and waiting as the sun rose. The air was filled with anticipation as they sipped coffee and shared nervous laughter. They could hear the distant rumble of engines as Karen's cement trucks approached. Tension filled the air as they held their breath, hoping their plan would work. As the first truck rolled toward the bridge, the driver slammed on the brakes. The sight of the barrier and warning signs caught him off guard. He quickly radioed Karen, who arrived moments later, her expression a mix of confusion and annoyance. "What is going on here?" she demanded, stepping out of her truck. The residents slowly emerged from my home, the mill house, sat on a 5-acre slice of land separated from the main Oak Creek Highlands subdivision by a small, gently winding creek. Access to my property, and mine alone, was via a charming 20-foot-long timber bridge. I'd personally rebuilt it, adhering strictly to the county's guidelines for residential use. A 5-ton weight limit. Perfect for cars, SUVs, and my pickup truck. The problem was Diana Sterling, the HOA president. Diana was building her custom dream house on the farthest plot in the development, a plot that could only be accessed from the subdivision side. However, some genius contractor convinced her that using my bridge was a 30-second shortcut for the heavy construction traffic, saving them 20 minutes of driving around the long main road. The trucks of doom, the abuse started subtly, but soon became daily. Large gravel trucks, earth movers, and worst of all, massive cement mixer trucks, weighing nearly 40 tons when fully loaded, began thundering across my little bridge. The bridge groaned. The planks warped. Large structural timbers began to splinter. I confronted Diana, showing her the 5-ton limit sign I'd posted. "It's temporary, Trenton," she airily dismissed me. "It's for the good of the community. We need this house finished." "And honestly, that little sign of yours, it's just decorative. It's a wooden bridge. It can handle it." "Stop being such a dramatic obstructionist." I sent certified letters to the HOA, the construction company, and Diana herself, detailing the structural damage and citing the violation of both property rights and county safety codes. Diana's response? A smug email. "The HOA has determined that your bridge is the most practical access route for our approved development. We will continue to use it, and if it breaks, we will replace it with a structurally sound community bridge. Thank you for your cooperation." They were actively planning to destroy my property and replace it with something they wanted. My patience snapped. The trap. The invisible line. I decided the bridge needed to send a message that was clearer than a letter or a sign, a message that spoke the language of unassailable physics. I took a week off work, telling Diana I was on vacation. I didn't replace the cracked timbers. I reinforced them. I worked underneath the bridge, hidden by the creek banks and dense foliage. My plan wasn't to destroy the bridge. It was to preserve it and trap the destroyer. I carefully drilled into the underside of the main support beams on the far side of my bridge. I then installed a custom system of 3 massive industrial-grade hydraulic pistons. These pistons were connected to a pump housed discreetly in a waterproof box beneath the earth. The pistons were engineered to do one thing: raise the final 6 feet of the wooden bridge deck by exactly 3 feet. But only under 2 conditions: a manual remote signal from me. A weight sensor detected a load exceeding 20 tons on the bridge. The goal wasn't to crash the truck. It was to lift the rear wheels just enough to make forward movement impossible. The grand finale, the why. Cement mixer trucks returned precisely 1 week later. I was sitting on my porch with a pair of binoculars and a cup of coffee. I watched as the lead truck, a massive, fully loaded mixer, slowly rumbled onto my bridge. It passed the 5-ton limit, then the 10-ton limit, and settled heavily onto the center span. I clicked the remote control I held in my hand. The sensor confirmed the weight. Whoosh! With a powerful hydraulic hiss, the final section of the bridge deck snapped upward. The rear axles and drive wheels of the 40-ton cement truck were suddenly lifted 3 feet into the air. The truck was perfectly immobilized, its front wheels firmly on the ground, its rear wheels spinning uselessly above a 3-foot gap. A horrified construction foreman emerged, followed by the truck driver. Then Diana Sterling herself roared up in her SUV. "What is the meaning of this?" Diana shrieked, looking at the cement truck caught mid-crossing. I walked calmly onto the bridge. "Ah, Diana, it seems your 40-ton truck encountered a problem with a 5-ton bridge." "Did you damage my contractor's equipment?" she demanded. "Not at all," I replied, gesturing to the hydraulics. "The bridge is perfectly intact, now significantly reinforced, in fact. What you're seeing is a state-of-the-art, weight-compliant security barrier installed to protect my structural property. The sensor detected an illegally overweight vehicle and engaged the safety lockout protocol, the unmovable object. The next 12 hours were pure poetry. The construction company couldn't move the truck. It was carrying tons of liquid concrete that was beginning to cure, and it was too heavy to tow without further risk. The only solution was to pump the fresh concrete out of the truck and into the creek bed, a major environmental violation that got the construction company into serious trouble, or pump it back into a smaller truck, which required dismantling the truck on my bridge. The HOA lawyer, called in by a panicked Diana, had to admit the truth. I had the right to install a device to prevent damage to my private property. The truck was immobilized because it was violating the posted weight limit, not because I was malicious. I, however, charged them a massive daily usage fee, retroactive to my first complaint, for the right to leave the disabled truck on my land while they figured out the logistics. Diana's construction project was delayed by weeks. Her concrete load was ruined, and her contractor's insurance refused to cover the damage because they knowingly violated the weight limit. My trap didn't destroy the truck. It only enforced the law. And that, I found, was a far more satisfying kind of justice.